Well, hey there. How's it going? For Best Music Coach, my name is Dan, and you're watching a music teacher's reaction live in real time to the disco Elysium original soundtrack. I've never heard this music before in my life, so everything I say, do, talk about, teach, and break down is going to be off the top of my head and in the moment as we go with no prior preparation. We're just going to start. And who knows what on earth might happen. So stay tuned as we get rocking and rolling. We're going to jump straight into it. Hi, chat. How's it going? Jappy Patadzaki in the house. First time chat. Great to see ya. All right, let's do this thing. Instrument of Surrender. I have no idea what's about to happen, and I'm so stoked to find out. All right, let's do this thing. Oh my gosh. What an incredible piece of art to start us off with for the day. So, as always, I'm going to break down a couple things that were going on. The first thing I want to point out is that fundamentally, that whole thing you just heard was basically one idea and 3 chords. It was one idea, 3 chords. What's a chord, you might say? Well, that's when we take a note. The note sounds like this. We do 2 or more notes at the same time. That's going to be a chord. Now, so the idea we heard was... That's it. Let's hear it one more time. Ah, here we go. I got a little fancy with it, but that's basically the one idea, the one little bit of melody that you would sing along with if you heard it. Now, the chords that were underneath it the whole time were basically... That's like the whole thing. Kind of going round and round in circles. I'm very much simplifying. What I'm doing is I'm pulling things out of the music to help you understand what's going on. Now, past those sort of distillations of the ideas, what beautiful music. And what an incredible way to, what was that? About 5.5 minutes of one idea, 3 chords. And just building and crafting and pushing and pulling and all the layers and the sounds. Delicious, delicious music. Loving it. Let me hear from you in the chat. Type a 2. Sorry, 2. I know some of you are in England. Type a 2 if you very much enjoyed that song. All right, let's do this thing. By the way, if you don't want to see ads, you can become a subscriber and you get all sorts of cool things. You get special little things next to your name and things like that. All right, let's check out this next one. Oh, yes. See, Pop Cat X, Return to Space Cowboy, Jappy. I'll type in the 2. Smash Matt says 2. Return to Space Cowboy. Yes, you can tell the subscribers because they have the little iHeart music icons next to their names. All right, this one is called Whirling-In-Rags 8 a.m. What an interesting name of a song. Oh, come on. Woo! Why is the singer from Keane not singing right now? Ah! Oh, come on. I mean, first of all, wow. Again, so beautiful, delicious, and gorgeous. Now, there's essentially three things happening in this piece. The first is this. So it's... Now, if this sounds, let me hear from you guys, because you guys can probably hear this, even if you have no musical experience. Type a 3. Type a 3 in the chat. Type a 3 in the chat if you could hear the connection between the first song and this song here. So what it is, it's the same key. It's using the same notes, different chords, sure, slightly different variations in the melody. But this is bringing me back to sort of like when we talked about Undertale and how there was sort of one central idea and all ideas felt like fragments or directly related to that central idea. We're hearing that all these ideas, what was it? No, it was dun, dun. Which was another idea from this song right here. It's all based around using the same exact notes. So the notes we're using, it's a D major scale. Basically the key of D major, yeah, maybe B minor from time to time. But really what we're hearing here is that there's 7 notes. And using only these 7 notes, everything is being created. Isn't that cool? Using only 7 sounds. Well, technically more than 7, but basically 7. Because sometimes sounds repeat. So like, this is 1, this is also 1, this is 4, this is also 4. You know how the 1 and the 4 are related. That relationship's called an octave, but we'll save that music theory for another time. So basically, there's 7 notes creating everything you're hearing, and that's a testament to how creative, artistic, and, well, really good at writing music the composer, orchestrator, arranger of this soundtrack is. This next one is called Detective Arriving on the Scene. By the way, if you want to decide what OST I react to next, all you got to do is put like 2,000 bits and then say the name of the OST, or 3,000 bits, say the name of the OST, 4,000 bits, say the name of the OST. Minimum would be 10. So 1,000. Minimum would be 1,000 bits. You say the name of the OST. And then I've got this really cool thing called Streamlabs where I can go in and I can see everyone who's done 10,000 or up, 1,000 or up. I'm having issues with my orders of magnitude today. Roll with me. And then I can actually see what you chatted, and then I can go add that to the list. And if you want to see the list, it's in the About tab. So go check out the About tab. All right. Detective arriving on scene. Same chords as the first song we heard. Oh, with a G. Okay, so two things. Number one, I just want to rewind right here because I might have heard a G sharp. Yes, G sharp in there. All right, really interesting. That's the first time I think we've heard a G sharp in this entire piece, which is cool because that's like turning the D major. It's like a D major sharp 4 or sharp 11. How cool is that? But back to the second thing that I want to say is, look, I want to show you how connected these pieces are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the guitar part, one of the guitar parts from the last song over this song, so you see how it's actually going to work. Go ahead, let me know in the chat if you could hear that connection that I brought in from the last song we listened to, brought it into this one, and that's how interconnected these are, and that's part of what gives this feeling of everything being unified, everything being a specific vibe, a feeling. It's like, yeah, the instruments, yes, the arrangement, yes, the speed, but it's also about the notes that are being used. So let me know in the chat if you could hear that connection. I want to hear from you. And while you're telling me all about how you can hear it in the chat, I know you need a second to type. I'm going to get the next one to start, which is called Tiger King. Huh. Interesting title. So what I want to explore with you after listening to the song is how much one note can change the feeling of what's going on. So throughout this entire song, we essentially hear 4 chords. Now, it's not the same 4 chords every single time it comes back around, and I'm going to show you why. So we hear 4 chords. It's a pattern of 4 chords. Now, what's interesting about these 4 chords is that the lowest note of each chord stays the same the entire time, but the notes above that lowest note change. So let's start by understanding the lowest note that we hear. So we hear, this is going to be the lowest note of the first chord, lowest note of the second chord, lowest note of the third chord, lowest note of the final and fourth chord. And this pattern goes round and round and round. So I'm just going to play through it 2 times just so you can hear the connection between what you just heard and what I'm doing now. Now let me know in the chat if you can hear the connection here. Hear the connection between what you just heard and what I'm doing now. Let me know in the chat. Let me know. So what's happening is that the notes above that lowest note are changing. So sometimes the notes sound like this. Now, here's where things get really cool, is that one note gets changed in 2 of the chords. So the lowest note stays the same, but things above the lowest note change. So check this out. First chord stays pretty much the same. Second chord, now we could change one note. Ooh, very different. I'll play it in a way you can understand the comparison in a second. And then in the next chord, whoa. Very different. So here's the second chord. We'll call this version 1 of the second chord. Sounds like this. Version 2 of the second chord sounds like this. Same lowest note. Oh, but very different up top. So here's version 1. Here's version 2. Let me know in the chat. Type a 1 in the chat if you can hear the difference between version 1 and version 2. Version 1. Version 2. It's like going to the eye doctor for your prescription. He's like, option 1, option 2. You're like, can I see 3 again? He's like, I didn't say 3 yet. All right, you guys can hear it. So, check this out. There's also another change that happens in the 4th chord. The 4th chord, it's this. This is option 1 or option 2. Oh. There's a big difference there. Option 1. Option 2. And so what the composer is doing is alternating in that second chord and 4th chord slot, alternating between option 1s and options 2. So I'm going to play through the 4 chords with option 1, and then I'll play through the 4 chords with option 2. So here's the 4 chords, option 1 for both. Option 1 for second chord. Option 1 for 4th chord. Now here we go back to the 1st chord. Option 2 for second chord. Oh, very different. Option 2 for 4th chord. And it fundamentally changes the emotional feeling of the music. And the reason is because option 1 and option 2 is alternating between a major and a minor chord. Major chords, on a very basic level, we can think of them as being happy. Minor chords, on a very basic level, we can think of them as being sad. And so alternating between a very closely related major and minor chord, where you only have to change one note, that changes it from being happy to sad, is what we can see happening in this chord progression. And that's one of the reasons why listening to it for 5 minutes, it doesn't sound exactly the same every single time. There's more reasons why it doesn't sound exactly the same every single time, but that is one of the reasons, is that fundamental change of one note in two of the chords, switching them from the sort of happiness to sadness or from sadness to happiness, and the overall emotional effect that that has on the music as a whole. Let's check out this next one, which is called Your Body Betrays Your Degeneracy. My goodness, I needed to go back to school and learn how to read again for all those words. All right, here we go. Okay, so another song based around a singular musical idea. And the single musical idea this whole song is based around is... And underpinning the whole thing is just... the whole way through. So I'm going to give you the ba with my voice, and then I'll play the guitar, and then I'll break it down. Sorry if you have perfect pitch. Yeah. And so what that does is it creates essentially tension and resolution over and over again. When you have these two notes, this is tension. And then the tension increases, and then it resolves. Tension. Resolve. And so that's part of what keeps us interesting. And granted, it's not 5 minutes in a row, right? But that's what keeps us interesting, and that's what keeps your attention, is the tension, resolution. Tension, resolution. And in music, over and over again, in so many different soundtracks, genres, decades, centuries even, the key to interesting music and to keeping the listener's attention, is tension and resolution over and over again, cycles after cycles after cycles upon cycles of tension and resolution. There's like small tension and resolution, then there's larger tension and resolution cycles, and larger and larger and larger. And you can even compare song to song as tension to resolution. And you can even compare generation to generation of songwriters as tension to resolution. It gets real deep, man. Let's keep this thing going with Precinct 41, Major Crime Unit. Oh, this is cool. So, what I want to explore with you guys right now is the idea of a drone. What a drone in music is, it's going to be consistent pitch or pitches, notes that are held out over a long period of time, and everything else is compared to those notes. So, throughout this entire song, and then it changes, sure it goes. This idea of there basically being one single note that everything is compared to, it's just going to be this E, and everything on top of that. whole time. It's one note, and everything else is being compared to that one note. And what's really fun about that is you can do many different things when you're only comparing to one note. Anything can happen on top of that when you have a drone. Anything. You can create any color you want. So for example, use this as a drone. Now we can make it sad, minor. Or we can make it happy, major. Oh, see how it's happy? Same note on the bottom. And so drones are a way you can use anything in music just by comparing everything to one note. You can change happy, sad, major, minor, anything you want over a drone. Is my chat broken? Can someone say something in the chat? I haven't seen a new chat message in a minute. Show me some love in the chat. Give me like a type of 1 in the chat. If you're still here and you can still hear me. Okay. Y'all are still here. It's just a quiet day today. Chat's been quiet. Yeah, chat has been a little quiet today, but that's okay. Oh, no need to apologize. I was checking to make sure. Because usually it's about a chat a second. Let's just make a check. Hey, slow days are fine. Slow days are cool. I was just checking to make sure everything was okay. All right. Next one is called the Insulindian Miracle. Insulindian Miracle. Excuse me. And if someone would like to tell me what on earth Insulindian means, I would be very grateful. Okay. So two things I want to break down for you. Number one, the chords, but number one, a note, a single note that happened in here. I'm going to find it. Oh, 2 notes actually. That was really cool. All right, well, we'll start with that. So What happens is, well, this will actually tie into the chord progression. So basically, we're in D minor. Beta, beta, ba, 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 okay. Now, this is where things are really cool. So it's G minor, F, D minor, C, G minor. So this is 4, 3, 1, 7. Now, here's it gets really cool. It goes B flat, B flat minor to the A. And that B flat minor is just gestured at. B flat. Now that's very, very fascinating. So check this out. From the B flat, we're gonna walk down one note at a time. This is called chromatically. We're gonna walk down from a D to essentially a D flat. Well, down to a and then that D flat is no longer really a D flat. It actually becomes a C sharp. Two notes, two names for the same note. This is called an enharmonic equivalent. So some notes have two names, just like my mother, when she's very angry with me, will call me Daniel, but everyone else just calls me Dan. So two names, same person. We can see here we have this B flat. And the top note of this B flat, this is a D. This is the note we've been hearing a lot throughout this entire soundtrack. In fact, every single song we've heard so far has had a D note in it, if I recall correctly. And then we're going to change, keep the bottom note the same, changes from happy to sad. Ooh. And then go to the big tension moment that turns us back around to the one. Now, there was actually a point in this song where we actually heard a D major. And this proves the point about when you have a drone, you can do whatever you want on top of it. Because the lowest note is just D. You can make it a D minor or make it a D major. Is it sad? Or is it happy? There you go. Right over a drone, changing notes, changing the feeling, changing the emotion of the music. Just gesturing at it, just like a couple songs ago we heard just a little bit. Remember I said, oh wow, how incredible, a little G sharp. It's the same idea. You can hear Chris Christodoulou, incredible composer of the Risk of Rain soundtracks. You can hear he does stuff like this all the time. It's like one note you hear one time for like 2 seconds in one section of one song. Takes a lot of work, takes a lot of love, but wow, is it interesting, significant, and so much fun when you find it. All right, this next one is called Polyhedrons. Okay, so a couple of really fascinating things going on in this song. Number one, basically two chords the whole time. Basically, the two chords are G to B minor. If we think of G as being 1, then we go G, A, B. B is 3, B minor. Now, what's interesting about this is that we could definitely think about this as being in the key of G major, and it may be in fact right for us to think about this as being in the key of G major. However, the chords of G major and B minor, those actually also come from the key of D major that our first 2 or 3 songs were in. So the chords in D major are going to be D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A major, B minor. Those are the most important ones. And there's only one chord that changes, well, 2 chords that change in the key of G major. So it's going to be G major, A minor instead of A major, B minor, same as D, C, then D, same as D, and then E minor, same as D. So we have a lot of common chords together. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. So I'll actually show you what this would sound like if I was pretending we were in the key of D, and then if I was pretending we're in the key of G. So this is what it sounds like if I pretend we're in the key of D. Okay, so that's me pretending we're in the key of D. Now I'll pretend we're in the key of G for a second. So definitely a difference. But yeah, 300 IQ music, exactly. But the whole, yeah, I mean, you can tell, like Chris Christodoulou, really smart guy. So the whole thing is like, it's like, even though I'm saying it's in a key, if there aren't enough chords to actually fill out with the keys, you could fill in the missing pieces, and it could be a couple of different keys if you really wanted to. So if we think about it, there actually should be one more key that has a G major and a B minor in it that it could be, which would be, so we have G major, we have D major, oh no, that may be about it. 4 chord, yeah, D major, G major, yeah. But still really cool that we could go either way with that. This next one is called Live With Me. Let's check it out. Or perhaps it's Live With Me. Hey, thanks for being live with me here. Thank you all so much for joining. Hey, by the way, if you're just hanging out and you're lurking, say a little hi. I won't call you out, but just say hi, because I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see you. Lurkers are most welcome. And I will not call on you or point you out, but just say hi. You're hanging out. Next one is called Live With Me. So this is another time where we can see, by the way, thank you so much, It's Nikki, for subscribing. And if you're an Amazon Prime member, you get a free subscription. So subscribe, because you can do it for free. And that way you don't have to watch any ads. So, sometimes, so, what's really cool about this too is we actually see some alternating between chords again. Sometimes it stays right here. On one. Then sometimes it goes to here. So I'm going to play you version 1, version 2, and let me know in the chat by typing a 1 when you hear the difference between version 1 and version 2. So yeah, here's version 1. That was version 1. Here's version 2. Yeah. So fundamentally, again, it's one of those relationships where there's a one-note difference between a major version and a minor version of this. It's almost the same chord. It's one note changing. It changes it from being in major to minor. And sometimes you can hear the composer has in sort of option 2, and sometimes the composer has in option 1. And that's part of what's making this music that is repetitious stay interesting, is those small changes of one note every once in a while when the song comes around. By the way, welcome first time chatter. Thay Blight, great to see ya. This next one is called The Field Autopsy. Wow, so number one, from those metal scrapes, which there's many different ways of doing those. I know of one way to do it, which is when a drummer will take their drumstick and actually scrape it along a cymbal. That can make that sound. Now, this entire piece of music was underpinned by a drone. B flat, which according to Snapple is the sound black holes make. You should definitely fact check me on that because I'm not 100% sure. Apparently a black hole makes the sound of a B flat note like way, super way low. So maybe this was actually inspired by the sound of black holes. Who knows? Very interesting piece nonetheless, and very tastefully done, if I may say so, if I might interject my opinion there. Next one is called Miss Orange Disco Dancer. Let's check it out. Ooh. So a really beautiful piece of music, fundamentally only using 3 chords again. Really just hearing the F minor to B flat minor to C minor over and over and over and over again, but in such a way that is so tasteful. So tasteful. Oh, what a delightful soundtrack so far. Just the feeling and the vibe. So original. So unique. I'm loving every single second of it. Let's check out this next one, which is called Rue de Saint-Gislaine. Gislaine. Gislaine. Je sais pas comment dire cet nom. Let's check it out. So a very interesting thing is happening in the strings here. Right there. Right there. Oops, wrong one. Right there, you could hear that really high-pitched sound. That's the same exact thing. That's a harmonic. It's the same exact thing you can hear when I'm doing this type of thing on the guitar, where I'm gently touching. That's the same thing that can happen on any instrument that has strings. And you can hear that's exactly what's happening there on those strings, but they're being bowed, and that gets that extra little sound happening right in there. So it's actually called a harmonic. All right, this next one is called the Doomed Commercial Area. So Jaffe Patataki in the chat says, I wonder how they record this, maybe in a live studio. Yeah, very highly likely that a lot of this is live. And I'll tell you why. Because the only way you mass produce things that are not live is you make samples of them, or you record orchestras and strings doing specific things. And there's so many hyper-specific, unique things that are going on in this soundtrack, it is highly unlikely that it's a purchased pack of samples being put together to create the sound, and it is highly likely that there are some live players doing these very custom, unique expressions and musical gestures of things like this. like these trills here, with the way they're playing around with the harmonics on the string. It's like, sure, you might be able to find this in a pack of samples you buy or in VSTs or whatever, but highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. Very likely that this is custom done, which is very, very cool. The next one is called Cryptozoologists. Let's check it out. Okay, so here's a really interesting thing that happened here is that we have essentially one chord that stays the same, but the chord that alternates with that chord changes. And this time it's not the lowest note that stays the same, it's the highest note that stays the same. So check this out. Here's chord number 1, essentially. We're going to think about it this way. Here's chord number 1. Now, the next chord has 3 different versions of it. Here's the first one. So this is the top note. This top note's going to stay the same through 3 different chords. So here's chord number 1 with that top note. Here's chord number 2 with that same top note. Here's chord number 3 with that same top note. As what the composer's doing, they're alternating between those 3 chords that all share the same top note and the other chords. So I'll give you chord number 1 with top note, chord number 2, same top note, chord number 3, same top note, alternating with that other chord. So here it is. All right, here's chord 2. Chord number 3. Very interesting way of flipping that approach we heard before of the lowest note being the same between multiple chords. Now the highest note is the same between multiple chords, alternating with a different chord. Excellent. Very cool. Let's check out this next one, which is called Whirling-In-Rags, 8 p.m. Ha! We know this one. Yes, Jaffe about it. We know this one because we heard the same one. Yeah, we heard this from Whirling-In-Rags before, the other one. It's like, this is just slightly more dressed up. Well, that was a different version for sure of Whirling-In-Rags, and what a delightful redressing up of the Whirling-In-Rags. Great to see a first-time chatter. Elysium. So glad you're here. So next up we have Disco Elysium Part 1, Part 2. I'm going to let them play through before I say anything. So I'm going to listen to Part 1 and Part 2, then I'll give any commentary or reactions. Here we go. Wow. So, Disco Elysium Part 1 and Part 2, we hear such a tasteful representation of the atmosphericness we've been hearing so far throughout the soundtrack. Reminds me a little bit of listening to perhaps the first part of Elden Ring soundtrack, where there was a lot of atmospheric things going on. We're hearing, sure, there's sometimes it almost feels like it's about to be a pop song. Sometimes we're really it's just this calm, cool background music, just setting the scene and the feeling clearly for gameplay happening in front of it. And that being said, we're going to move forward and keep on rock and rolling. We're going to check out Ecstatic Vibrations, Totally Transcendent. Let's see what happens. I think that was a totally transcendent dance tune and was 100% fun. So, some really cool things there. And then sometimes it went to C, but sometimes, just like we've been hearing throughout this entire soundtrack, a pattern gets established and there's like two variations of that pattern. Because then sometimes it would go Goes up to an E flat instead of a C. Ah, fascinating. Loving this soundtrack, loving the vibes. Let's keep it going. Hey, if it's your first time here, give me a shout out. Love to hear from you. Next one is called Saint-Brune 1147. Same melody from the last one, same melodic fragment. So we can hear the same melodic idea as from the last one. Which connects songs. It makes it feel cohesive, but like something's moving forward in the story. But still a similar place, maybe, a similar person, maybe, with that same melody. That melody may be representing something, which would be, well, we can call it a leitmotif in that case. But we're not sure if it's associated with the person, place, or thing. So for now, we'll just call it a motif. And shout out and thank you to Welsis, or Welsies. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. It says, I listen to your reactions and feedback of game OCs in the background of when I'm doing something a lot. Well, I'm really glad to hear that. And thanks so much for coming to hang out on Twitch today. Great to see you here. And this next one is called Martinaise, Terminal B. So, I mean, okay, number one, the whole thing is underpinned by an A-flat drone. Right there at the end, we heard that from the recorder. Now, here's what's really cool. So we've heard the guitar part through this whole thing. Now, what's really interesting is the chord this creates with the lowest note. So the lowest note here, this actually creates a minor major 7 chord. So we have an A minor up top, and then we have essentially what we're going to call a G sharp as the lowest note as the drone. And those 4 notes together create a minor major 7 quality chord. The next one is called We Are Not Checkmated. Okay, so really interesting thing going on the bass there. And just like we've seen throughout this entire soundtrack, there's basically 2 ways of doing it. There's like option 1, option 2. Option 1 is and then it starts again. And here's option 2. Option 2 has 1 note different. goes back down for coming back around. So clearly the composer is trying to either tell us something or just has the idea. Indeed, it's almost like the motif of doing things two different ways. And there's only ever two ways. It's like the whole soundtrack. There's two ways. It's very cool. There's an option 1 or there's an option 2. This next one is called Hope in Work and Joy in Leisure. So the whole thing here is that we have a B minor to an A flat to a G, G flat, to an F minor. And so we're basically going 1, flat 7, flat 6, 2, 5, and then flat 6, 5, back to 1. That's the whole thing. And there's two options. Option 1 is just... Option 2 is... And then we're back to 1. Again, we're seeing throughout this soundtrack, it's option 1 or it's option 2. Let's see how perhaps we will find option 1 and option 2, or if I will indeed be proved wrong on my option 1, option 2 hypothesis in Burn, Baby Burn.
Want to be free. Want to be free.
This is Disco Inferno. This is Burn Baby Burn. Disco Inferno. Yeah, Burn Baby Burn. Disco Inferno. Burn Baby Burn. Well, I can honestly say that is possibly the most original cover of Burn Baby Burn I've ever heard in my life. And indeed, we heard the Disco Inferno, some extra added lyrics in there. But interestingly, we actually had similar music and maybe even a copy paste of the background vocals and some of the piano from a song we heard previously. Unfortunately, I'm not going to remember the name of it. But connecting us into everything we've heard so far from this entire soundtrack, and indeed sticking with similar chords, tempos, chord progressions, and just changing things up with a Burn Baby Burn, Disco Inferno on the top. Let's check out this next one, which is called Whirling-In-Rags, 12 p.m. Ha! Well, a delightful rendition, indeed, of Whirling-In-Rags. We've heard Whirling-In-Rags essentially 3 different times of day now. And this wasn't quite the part. It was a little bit more sleepy, a little bit more subdued, a little bit more laid back indeed. So we're going to check out next is wish me luck. La Revacholiere. La Revacholiere, which I have no idea what that means. Maybe someone could Google that and let me know. We'll listen to this, and we'll take a little bit of a break, and we'll come back and finish the rest of these in a little bit. So let's check out La Revacholiere. Again, maybe. Maybe I've got that right. So a bee drone, yeah. Back to our 3 chords and share the same top note. So what a delightful piece that brought back this same exact pattern, that we heard before. And sure enough, the pattern is we have 3 chords that share the same top note. That being this top note right here. It's going to be D flat. And we hear it once, and D does a D flat major in first inversion to F minor. Now we also hear it as B flat minor in second inversion. F minor. We also hear G flat major, root position. Back to F minor. We're going to pick up where we left off with Krenel, Downwell, and Somatosensor. Let's check this out. So, basically, what was happening is an E minor. Then after some time, going to a C, then going to a B minor, before returning to the E minor. Now what's interesting is quite a bit I think every single time, if I'm not mistaken, in this original soundtrack that we've heard the five chords. So in music, we like to associate numbers with, letters with sounds, and then numbers with those letters to try and make sense of everything that's going on. So, for example, the first sound we hear, this is an E. In this case, E is going to be 1. Now, all the letters we have are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it repeats back to A. So we go A, B, C, D, F, G, A, B, C, D, F, G. And we can start on any one of those letters with a number. So in this case, we're going to start on E with 1. So E is 1, F 2 is G 3, and then we repeat back to the beginning. So A is 4, B is 5, C is 6. So we hear E, which is our 1. Then we go to 6, which is C. And then we go to 5, which is B. Now the quality or the sound of the chord on the 5 is minor. Now what's interesting is a lot of the time you'll actually hear a major 5 because it actually creates more tension and pushes us back to the 1 a little bit more effectively than that minor 5. But it creates a beautiful sound nonetheless. However, when I talk about the efficacy, if you will, of pushing us back to the 1, it really is around the tension that's created from having a 5 that's either the quality, the sound of the 5 is either dominant or major as opposed to minor. Let's check out this next one, which is called Off We Go Into the Wild Pale Yonder. Very interesting names. Let's do this. Oh, changing up the melody now. Oh, starting out the same. Okay, so some really interesting things, like the way this starts off. It starts off basically giving us the feeling of, wait for it, a C-Lydian scale. You can call it a mode too. So the whole thing is we're going to use all the notes of a G major scale, but starting on a C. So in a G major scale, we'd have G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. But instead of starting on G, we're going to start on C. So we have C, D, E, F sharp, G. And then, so that right there was pretty cool. And then it did this. And so that right there, that's all pulling from an E minor pentatonic scale. And kind of sounds a little bit poppy. So what's interesting too is like the very first song we heard on this, I was like, when is the lead singer from Keane gonna start singing? And that's because a lot of the songs we've heard so far of this Disco Elysium soundtrack have this pop element to them where it really could go pop. Like, tell me I'm the only one. Tell me I'm in love, or just a game. Dead into my heart, riding you every time you call my name. Right? It's like Taylor Dane. Basically, is what's happening. Hey, welcome first time chatter. eFox1515, what kind of feedback do you want to send? Tell me all about it. And so this whole song of off we go into the pale yonder, the whole thing is like, it's fascinating because it builds up. It has this atmospheric content we've been hearing the whole time. It changes a little bit like we've been hearing the whole time. Sometimes we have these two options for changing. But sure enough, we get to the end, and it's almost been a pop song, which started off with like C Lydian, then kind of went to E minor, and at the end was like maybe a little G major-ish. I don't know, it was E minor at the end too. Anyway, a fascinating, fascinating piece of music. Well, eFox says, I have an EDM song. Well, I tell you what, we'll do a community submissions stream in a little bit. How about that? And then we'll do it. So yeah, look out for details on that. eFox1515, thank you so much for asking. I'm really stoked to maybe check yours out in the community stream. So we'll figure out a system for that because I don't have a good system right off the top of my head. But I'll tell you what, let me finish doing this, react, and I'll give it a think. So thank you for your patience in advance. This next one is called ZAUM. ZAUM. Let's check it out. some really interesting things happen here. First of all, we can hear that the bass essentially is going D, A, B, implying a 1, 5, 6 chord progression. But then what happened was the bass went 1 to 5 to 3, assuming to 4, because counting backwards, I'll figure it out. 5, 4 to 3 to 2, and then came back to 1. A beautiful, delicious piece of music. And then also at the end, the way that it sounded, maybe like a cello, maybe a viola, maybe something else, and I'm getting it totally wrong, was playing, sounded very sort of like classical Indian music type thing, playing with what we would call, well, it could have been Rag Yaman because we didn't hear the 4. But anyway, sounded, the way it was approaching, you know. A very poor approximation of playing classical Indian music, but I mean, kind of a little bit like that. Well, okay, now I have questions. Okay, I have questions real quick before I go to the next one. I've had 2 people so far in the past 5 minutes say, am I giving feedback? So guys, is that what you want to do here? Because if that's what you want to do here, we can do that. 100%. I've got a couple more songs I'm committed to react to finish up this react. But if like why you are here and what you are interested from me is to get feedback on your songs, type a 2 in the chat right now. Even if you're a lurker, I won't call you out. If what you want, what you're interested in is feedback on your songs, type a 2 in the chat. Type a 2 in the chat. While you guys do that, I'm going to go ahead and check out Advesperascit. Lord have mercy. The names of this soundtrack. Oh yeah, come on. Oh. You know what was really incredible? Speaking of carbon-based life forms, you know what this really reminds? This reminds me of evolution, because it's like you hear, there's like one idea, right? It's like, and then you have this. Type of thing, and then there's a drone that comes in, just a B-flat drone that's going on, and it's all happening in the bass too. It's like some stuff that you normally would never see happening in the bass, and I actually, without detuning my guitar, I don't think I can do it. Having a but having that major second between both the A-flat and the G-flat at the same time, which we heard in the bass. Fascinating. I mean, normally you'd never do something like that, but the way, yes, the sound did evolve so beautifully. It was like the idea of the B-flat came in on top of that drone, because it was like a drone, essentially an A-flat, right? It was hanging out in A-flat, and then that B-flat drone comes in, and then from that B-flat drone, the idea then started to incorporate the B-flat note as well. I mean, it really felt organic. The entire evolution of that piece felt so just universally right, in the sense of like eating feels right. It just felt so smooth and organic and just right. I've no other words besides saying it just felt right. It was wonderful. It was gorgeous. This next one is called Ignus Nilsen Waltz. Let's check this out. This is the last song on this soundtrack, the soundtrack of Disco Elysium. Let's check this out. and indeed starting and ending this entire original soundtrack, the original soundtrack of the video game Disco Elysium, in the key of D major. I mean, really, really, 0 Point Psytrance, I've got to say, since you're the one who's active in chat today, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to say that this is the most the most organically evolving music I think I've ever heard in my life. It just feels, and organic is the word, man. It's like primal. It's like tapping into like developmental truth of the universe. I don't know, man. It's like just the vision behind it and the way everything evolves and the sounds that are used. It's like journeying into your own mind and understanding the organic truth of who you are is what this feels like, at least to me. I mean, gorgeous. Gorgeous. Without exception, every single song, for me, was a keeper. Incredible. Incredible. Wow. That being said, if any of y'all have any questions, we'll do a quick AMA. We can just chat for a little bit. Oh! There we go. Okay. We'll leave the chat up for a second. Okay. Yeah, 0 Point Psytrance says, as a serious music producer, I can tell you it's very hard to pull something like that out of your head and turn it into a track that doesn't get boring. I agree. And for the entire soundtrack, too. So much repetition in these ambient tracks. And not in a bad way, but just like, it's sort of like by virtue of what they are, that's what happens. You have that repetition, and that's part of the gorgeousness of it. But as we explored throughout many songs, there was a lot of times there was a binary option. You'd have one note change to create the relative major to the relative minor chord on chord progressions going through. And it's like small little things like that that we're pointing at. And again, that's very surface level. That's like relatively low resolution. If we dip into it and think about it from a producer standpoint, like 0 Point can talk to, for sure. It's like, wow. And then it's like picking the sounds, mixing the sounds, getting the whole thing to sing just right, and then have the mix and the master be so, just organic. Organic, man. Organic. Really incredible. I'll leave it open for a couple more minutes if anyone else wants to say anything. I see a couple people in chat. Y'all want to say anything? If you want to lurk, that's fine. I ain't going to call out no lurkers. The sound design with the field recordings were crazy on the last one. The whole thing's incredible. I mean, like, 0 Point Psytrance, this was part 2. There was a whole part before this where it was like real, in the studio with like string players and stuff, and just, it's not just that there was excellent players, it's that the players were given excellent direction, and that the whole thing had a vibe and a feeling. There's a cohesion to everything. There's a cohesion. There's a consistent vision across all the recordings, across all the tracks. Truly beautiful. Truly beautiful. Well, with that being said, I think we're going to tie this up for today. 0 Point Psytrance. Let's connect on Twitter or something to make sure we get you in for our community submissions. I'm at Music Expert Dan Spencer. Yeah, the album's insane. So it's actually the OST from a video game soundtrack called Disco Elysium. It's incredible. I got it off Bandcamp to support the artist. Yeah. But it's really incredible. Music Expert Dan Spencer. Shoot me a message over on Twitter. and we'll connect it up. All right, thank you all so much for watching. If you're watching the VOD, please hit like, subscribe, crush that notification bell, and I will see y'all next time. Thank you all so very much for your support, and I will see ya. Take care, and goodbye.